Hey, what is going on, party people? We are about to jump into the replay from a really dense technical conversation with some very smart people trying to attack and solve a real world problem that we laid out. But before we jump into the actual context, into the actual conversation, I wanted to issue a caveat that I should have given during the live call, and I forgot. So I only got to the caveat about an hour into it. But the reality is, this conversation is intentionally complex. And while we're solving or endeavoring to solve a like unique and nuanced scenario, that isn't where I recommend most businesses start. And you probably have heard me or someone else say this, but version one is better than version none. And that version one doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it is a really simple solution that just gets the job done, right? And so we built that. And the conversation you're about to embark on is like a version 5 or a version 10, where we're sort of dreaming, well, how would we do this and also that without compromising this other thing? So I want to call that out because this is meant to be more of an academic exercise. And I don't want anyone to feel intimidated if you're watching this conversation and thinking, man, there's a whole lot going on. I can't really follow all this. The goal was to have a thoughtful and interesting conversation with a bunch of smart people looking at the same challenge from varying perspectives. And I think it went pretty well. I really enjoyed participating, and I want to give a lot of credit to Brett, to Jake, to Lindy, to Jade, and to JMP for their respective contributions, selfless contributions in this event. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the replay where JMP will set the context for this particular scenario, and then the conversation will sort of evolve organically from there. Enjoy. Do you want to tell these guys about the Keap Academy scenario we are looking at solving today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to present this scenario, and I think it's going to sound maybe simple to start with, and bear with me as it gets a little more evolved, possibly. So, as Greg mentioned, I'm working with Keap Academy, and we have a number of courses that we deliver, and we have about 8 of these pillar courses, like big, chunky, multi-lesson courses that have a whole series of automated follow-up that happen after them. And so if you sign up for one of these courses, you get kind of 2 buckets of follow-up. You get reminders to complete whichever part of the course you're on. And you also get what we think of as user-created communication. So you do something, you might get an email in response to that. You complete a chapter, hey, good work on completing chapter 1. So 2 buckets of content. And we have 8 of these courses.
I mocked up just a quick sample here to help illustrate it for them.
Yeah, so this is exactly what all the campaigns look like.
Yeah, so
I worked hard on them.
This would be a really simple course if there was only one module, right? But the reality is the campaigns look a little more like this. So when somebody enrolls, right, they would be in that top sequence until they start section 1. Once they start section 1, they get a congratulatory email and then reminders until they start section 2, et cetera, et cetera. So it's sort of this ladder with individual experiences for the different segments within that course. And as JMP was saying, within any of those individual sequences, there's an immediate email sort of acknowledging their progress. Hey, you unlocked this course, or hey, you finished section 1, et cetera. And then delayed follow-up, 2, 3, 4 emails over the period of a couple of weeks, encouraging them to keep making progress. Bingo. So that's what the inside of those sequences look like.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. All right. So let's say we have 8 of these key courses. Here is the problem that we're trying to solve. We don't want to, let's take one step back. People are going to sign up for these courses, They're all incredible and super engaging. So most likely they're going to sign up for all 8 of them at the same time. That's what I'm assuming is what's going to happen. And when they do, they're going to start getting these reminders. We don't want to overwhelm people with a whole bunch of reminders to complete all of the things all at once. So what we would like to do is have a hierarchy of these communications. So let's say we decide course A is the most important one that we want people to receive all of the communication to. If you sign up for course B, you would not get the reminders to complete course B. You would only get the reminders to complete course A if you're already in that. But you would get the congratulations for finishing chapter 3 in course B. Conversely, you're already in course D and you sign up for course A, you would stop getting the reminders for course D and start only getting the reminders for A. So we have this hierarchy of these 8 different courses. Now, if you're in
Jake, please hold your questions until Josh is.
here's the extra little wrinkle on top. Let's say you're in course A and course C. So you're not getting the reminders to finish C. Then you finish A. Now we would like you to get the reminders to finish C because you're no longer in something above that one in the hierarchy.
Jade's getting hot and bothered over there.
Yeah, I'm muted because I tend to mumble commentary whether you like it or not. So I was like, that's spicy, baby, to myself. So you're welcome, everybody. I'm gonna go back to mute.
All right,
now is opportunity for a question or two.
Josh?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
Okay. First question I have is, how unique are the emails that you're sending on the reminders to complete course A versus course B versus course C? Is there specific things about what they're learning and why they should continue? Or is it generically, this is course A, don't forget that it should be fill in the blank title?
Yeah, I like it. I see where you're going with this, Jake, which is, could we just make them all the same? No, we didn't make it that easy for ourselves. Everyone is unique to the course.
They reference the material they've completed. They reference what's upcoming as motivation to keep going. But I do like that concept of like a looping reminder that just updates with whatever the top priority not finished campaign is.
I was just going to say list all of the ones that they're currently enrolled in. And then as they finish one, that would disappear in the next reminder email. And as long as they're enrolled, they continuously get reminder emails to move forward.
Expand. So if they're in like 4, the email itself would kind of grow. That's what you're visualizing?
Yep. Oh, yeah. So essentially, you would be able to set content, add and remove pieces when it's time to send a reminder. It's like, hey, time to send a reminder. They are active in A, C, F, and ZZ3.
Josh,
whatever.
All right.
That's ZZ3.
Sorry, ZZ3 for our international folk. And so with that, it would basically go through a series of like setting fields plus this, where it would combine fields together and say, okay, take this one and add this and add this. Now send that one custom field of information embedded in there to say, hey, this, don't forget you're in list, you got this course, and this course. And so that'd be a super easy setup. But it would take away the something that keeps people engaged, which is the like, hey, so you completed this part, and next we're going to be learning about or identifying, which keeps people engaged to move forward in that content piece. So that was, in asking the question, I was like, well, if you have it this way, like there is a simple answer, but you have complicated it a little bit, and does not completely.
Yeah, and that's the one of the 2 tricky bits that we've been trying to solve is like the separation of those 2 things, right? Is we want to still send you the encouragements that you finished chapter 1, chapter 3, whatever, regardless of how many of these you're in. but we only want to send you the reminders to complete the one that is the top of the hierarchy that you're currently in.
Let's
kind of keep it focused.
Yeah, let's put a pin in. I like that idea, but I want to see if there's a way to salvage the specificity that's in the reminders for now.
There is.
Lindy or Brett, do you guys have any clarifying questions or anything you want to add? Brett, I saw Lindy's hand first, so I'm gonna go to her.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Lindy.
Okay.
Just creating space.
Yeah, mine's not clarifying, but firstly, that I love the extra detail, going the extra mile to personalize it. That's the power and the ability we have with the CRM. Yes, it takes more complexity in thinking of the pathways and how do we make it simple. My first thought of simple was when first of all, you have a start here module in the program that says when you go through the training, enroll in one course, complete it before you enroll in the others. So when I'm referring people in the onboarding calls, that's what I say to them. Do this one, complete it before you enroll in another, so that you don't get all of these reminders, because otherwise it gets confusing. So that's one thing you could add in. But then can we not just have a simple tag that if they start advanced automation training, that until they've completed that, they then can't get access to the reminders of it. So you've got a completion tag or a started tag, which Decision Diamond says, no, you can't come in. And a completion tag, which then says, okay, now they can go here if they meet whatever criteria. It's getting a bit too complicated for me, but yeah, I'm just thinking simple. Can that somewhere, now I'll leave that with you guys.
Lindy, are you suggesting like more linearizing? Like you start with A and then you're going to go to B, and then it starts at B and then you're going to go to C. Kind of like what if I understood it right, what Josh, what you were saying at the beginning, which is like, we still want people to get everything, and then they'll just sort of sit and wait until it's ready for us to send the rest of the reminders for like whatever the next one in line is, right? Something like that.
Yeah, if they've completed that course, then go here. I guess you've got that complexity though, of if they go click, 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 I want to join all these courses.
Right.
Then
which they will.
Tags,
which people
and I feel like I should clarify too that even though I said like course A, B, C, that's our internal hierarchy of the ones we think is most important to encourage them to complete. They're not in any way linear courses. So someone could just do D because that's the one that they're most interested in.
Right.
If that
and I think to that point, I think what Jake was saying is really valuable, because then you can still suggest the hierarchy without forcing it, because everything's there. You know what I mean? There's also, have you guys talked about liquid content at all? Dynamic content? What's
yeah, but go ahead.
Some liquid. Liquid is like easily my favorite thing in Infusionsoft.
Since
by the way,
since 2012,
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Well, the thing that Jake was talking about using custom fields to basically build dynamic content. Not to toot my own horn too much, but yeah, since 2008 is when I says how long I've been doing that.
I meant liquid content was my favorite feature they've released since 2012, because that's when the campaign builder came out. I wasn't trying to flex on you, Brett. Don't worry.
Yeah. I was gonna have to respond. So what have you talked about so far as liquid content is concerned, or dynamic content? I think is what Infusionsoft calls it. I just call it liquid because it's more fun.
Right. So for anyone watching who isn't familiar, dynamic content is Keap's implementation of liquid coding, which is a syntax or language that I don't know who developed it first, but like Shopify uses it. There are other it's not just like Keap.
Every other I mean, Active Campaign and HubSpot, okay. And I mean it very conditionally based logic within inside of a specific message page or whatever the thing may be.
Perfect.
It's essentially like a cross between JavaScript and PHP that sits inside the code that the email service will then render based on whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, so we do use dynamic content in the post-course, like congratulations, you're done email to recommend next steps based on what they have or haven't already done, as well as to encourage completion of the survey, because the survey is type form embedded in Thinkific. This worked out nicely that I had another tab open. That was a complete coincidence as I'm prepping for the workshop later this week. But like, so when somebody finishes a course, the last one is like, take this survey, and they could take the survey, but they also could just click continue and be done with it. And if they do that, they don't get the tag from Typeform. So the email prompts them to still take the survey if they don't have that tag. But I don't believe we've used or considered Liquid as a solution here to this challenge.
Because I'm thinking about maybe breaking it a little bit to fix it. So when I look at something like this, I'll step back and I'll think, okay, to the point of like, let's just jam everything into the email. It doesn't really matter how you do it. I think whatever makes the most sense for you. I happen to like Liquid content because it seems to be simpler for my brain. But if you like, when somebody gets into a course, is it the way you have it broken down is like each individual course has its own set of reminders that are delayed based on the starting of that course. But would it be fair to say that when someone starts a course, that's the starting, and it's flipping a status, like now they're active in something, right? And then for the entire duration of when they're active in something, they should be getting reminders to do the next thing. Is that fair?
Something.
Yeah. Yep.
Call someone and send me a text or whatever it is. Because that puts us into the looping sequence idea. If you can, I know one of the things that you guys are trying to not get away from is the congratulations emails. But if you just break out the reminders entirely, then congratulations emails are really easy. It's just the only thing that you send inside the actual sequences. But then the looping, it's not entirely simple and straightforward, because there's still the concern of like, dynamic content is great, but you can't use it in subject lines. So if the subject line needs to be, you either need to create enough of those emails to where the subject line isn't the same thing over and over and over again, which will just stack in the same thread in their email inbox, right? Which you could solve with just, like I said, you could just write 14 of them, different subject lines, but the liquid content or the merge fields or whatever inside the body of the email would be the same. But I do like, one of the things we do when we onboard people, there's this. So I'll see if I can do this quickly. This is not my skill set. Quickly is not my skill set, but I'll do the best that I can. So when we onboard clients, we have this onboarding process, and people pay a deposit or like their initial payment for their program. And then before they can actually get access to the program, they have 4 actions they have to take. By default, one of them is the thing that kicks it off, which is their initial payment. But then they also have to schedule or have an onboarding call. They have to sign a contract, and then they have to fill out an intake form. Intake form is Google Forms, and we just apply a tag through Zapier or Plus this or something. I don't know. My team does the details. But the way that we do it is they get put into, this is kind of a simplified version, but they get put into a sequence that's 3 emails long, maybe 4. And in that email, we basically designed the whole thing as just a bunch of different liquid triggers. So if tag has been applied saying that onboarding call is already scheduled or already occurred, then there's 3 different versions of that section. And then there's different versions of each of the individual sections. So you could even take it one step further with mashing all of the different sequences in there, or all the different programs in there, where the reminders could be, if A is the one you guys like the most, or that you want them to do the most, and they haven't even signed up for it yet, then the initial piece of liquid content that would be, you're still, whatever you're in the middle of doing, here's another thing you could go sign up for, right? And the second one would be, if they're in that one, obviously that's the thing that shows up at the top. And if they've completed it, then you could cycle through, different variations of, congrats, you already did this. You know what I mean? Now that could very quickly get old. Having to scroll past, I know I already completed A, right? But the beauty of that is, as it progresses, right, they're just getting, if they didn't do anything, then it says, hey, we need you to do this, and we need you to do this, and we need you to do this. And then as the things get completed, then it just drops off. So I think it makes, that I think there's an avenue there potentially. How many optional, how many courses are there? Like, is course the right word?
Yeah. They are courses.
Okay.
Here's the thing. This platform, we're talking about Keap Academy, which has, 50 courses in it per Thinkific's definition of courses. But the majority of those are webinar replays and like sessions from Icon, like where the campaign is just a start and a finish. So we're not worrying about those. Those don't have extended follow-up. They just have hey, here's the link in case you forget.
Got it.
So we're dealing with, at this point, a list of 8 campaigns or 8 courses that have multiple sections and extended follow-up throughout those sections. But the part of the challenge, and I could feel Jake's ideas burning out of him. Part of the challenge is that list will grow. Yes. And the hierarchy may change as new courses are introduced and we say, hey, that's important. So I want to share this, and we're not married to this, but the thought that we had was okay, cool. So let's separate the congratulations and the reminders, right? So within any individual section, we would have 2 sequences for the follow-up, where one is the congratulatory progress tracking email, and then nothing else in there. And then the second is the other components. So the follow-up reminders for that section. And if we break those out so that we have them separated, then we can set no rules for the congratulatory email, and that way it will run no matter what. But it gives us the opportunity to decide that the reminders only run if they aren't simultaneously in a campaign that has a higher priority rating or whatever. But the question becomes I'm not saying this is the answer, but if this is one of the routes we want to pursue, then the question becomes how do we write the rules for this to determine the list of higher priority campaigns that they might potentially be simultaneously enrolled in? Oh, by the way, that list is going to evolve.
Right. And so how do you avoid having to go back into 1 billion decision diamonds and take 1 billion times 1 billion?
We're wide open. We're wide open to using Zapier or to plus this, to storing that hierarchy somewhere else and performing a calculation that we pass back that says yes or no. Jake, go ahead.
So I as you were talking through it, what came to me was you could create a hierarchy. So basically you'd create a Google Sheet, and Google Sheet where you'd have rows based off of course 1, follow-up 1, course 1, follow-up 2, course whatever. And essentially you trigger a zap each time someone has completed something. You could even then pick up on the exact email they left off on. So if you've sent them email number 2 from course 2, and then they go into course 1 and it has a higher status, you pause this follow-up and then they get course 1 stuff, and when they come back, then they would pick up on email 3 or whatever, at email 3. So like you can make it as complex as you want at that point. But the idea being that you zap out like, hey, here's person with their contact ID to a sheet, add when they complete something, and then essentially, well, they completed this, what should be next? Well, go look them up on the sheet. What does the logic say? And then bring that data back over. Like, so you could, I think where you will end up, and I use Google Sheets a lot to avoid having to hire someone to code something for me. I know enough coding to break things. I know enough coding to break things, not enough to build things. And so, but I've made all sorts of wonders of how you get it to process certain data points and bring it back, and or tools to talk to each other that don't normally talk to each other. I think one of the problems is you're using Thinkific, but that's a sidebar conversation for a totally different day of tools that I would talk people out of every day of the week. Thinkific is one of them. But I think that one of the big components here is like you need a place to store, and then as that morphs and evolves, and I would have to get into actually Google Sheets and actually play around with it and run a zap or two to really dial that in on how it would work. But that's where I would start. And then that way you could be like, well, the hierarchy of rows is the hierarchy of what messages and things they should get. So as it looks the person up on the sheet and it's like, oh, they're here, like pick this next spot or whatever. It would also require, I think Brett hit on something very important, which is like there is a status active for overall process, as well as like status active, like they're status active in workshop or course A and course C and course 7. Like you'd have to have some sort of a status so that once A is done and you need to go look things up on the Zap, or you need to go look up things, it would be way easier if it was remove the status. Well, do they have the status B? No. Do they have status C? Yes, they do. Oh, okay, let's go look up the C data real quick. Here's their C data. Oh, okay, this is where they're at in the process. So I think a overarching status that they're actively learning, and then a what course have they enrolled and not completed status tag would then make it easier to decision diamond, or plus this decision maker logic, way more advanced than decision diamond or multi checkpoint there. I would.
The other benefit too of a plus this feature or a Zap is that you get back to what Greg was saying, which is you're not baking it into something, because plus this it's easier to change.
So much easier, and you can move around higher like that. So for me, the hierarchies, simpler, the orders, all of that are done so much better in a plus this tool, or in with the Zaps and into a Google Sheet. The number, the rows or the columns equals whatever, like that's way easier to organize than once you get past a certain level of hierarchy in a campaign, in an advanced automation, it gets clunky, and it increases the chance of things breaking. It also increases the amount of complexity you have to do when it comes time to add a new course or to rearrange the format. I've done something like this before with 26 variants, and then they decided they wanted to switch 2 of them around, and it was like a month and a half of fixing things, because it was like, oh, we didn't consider, and what about, oh, it did that, oh, now that trigger, oh no, what about that? So at a certain point, Greg, JMP, whomever may not be the person manning, or in charge of the day-to-day of that ship. And so the little weird complexities that could be in a campaign are easier to miss and forget and document.
100%. Yeah. And I think to that point, I think there's something.
Hold on. Important call out, just as a takeaway, even if this scenario has nothing to do with you or your business, the importance of documentation for future stakeholders, future owners,
yourself.
Yeah, for future versions of yourself. As JMP's been coming up to speed on Keap Academy stuff, more than one time, I've been so glad I have a video of the zap I set up or why we built it this way so that he could fix it and go make it better. Yeah. Who did I interrupt? Brett?
Oh, it's just me. No worries. No, I think to that point, to the point Jake's making, I think if it's possible, I think that if we can make each individual course, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Distinct, essentially, to where there's no order baked in anywhere, right? Where you could start any of them from at any point and it would make sense, right? Which I think actually also, I'm just killing it with the tiebacks. I think that's kind of what Lindy was talking about earlier as well, right? If I'm not mistaken. As you tie people through things, but if each individual piece can be triggered from anywhere, it seems like you could also create whether it's through Google Sheets or you're using the plus this decision maker feature or whatever, you would just create some sort of a brain that centralizes the logic of what to do next, and then the what to do is this. It's just apply this tag and then it goes.
Yeah.
I
would to one quick thing on what something Greg showed in his campaign. I 100% would detach your confirmation or your congratulatory from your other sequence. Like that to me would be step before you do any other step. I would go and do that for all of them. And I wouldn't even decision logic it like that. I would make all of them their own mini utilities. That would just be my own book of Jake approach, because of what Brett's talking about, of being able to trigger and stop and start from anywhere at any time for any reason. I would separate those out.
Yeah, because you end up running into a lot of situations where you're like, oh, I can just apply this tag and it'll do the thing, and then you forget to Jake's point. Oh no, I need to have this other like tag to make sure it knows which of those two to go into or which one to stop. So there's a lot of value in Greg, what you did, having a goal that says start, and that goes, instead of having that go into two sequences and then have a decision diamond in there, have a one that's unique for it's basically just send the congratulations email, and it's a tag, and you apply the tag, and then it sends the congratulations email. It's like a 1-to-1, and then you remove that tag.
Yeah, so I'm not convinced that's better, but I'm open. I'm not convinced mine's better either. I'm trying to think.
Well, the reason is
no. Let's pretend you think yours is definitely better, Greg. Now,
but now I want Brett and Greg to argue this out now.
Yeah.
Wait, should I get the clapometer?
Let me explain why in some cases, and I would even humbly say in most cases it is better, and it's predominantly because in cases that don't conform to the norm, having the ability to run a specific set of things ends up working out better for you. And I think in this particular case with this particular thing, you're going to want to be able to, because we're talking about controlling, the brain of this is going to be in some other system. We need the brain to be able to make specific decisions, and we need to be able to change. Anyway, you're going to end up in situations where you're going to go trigger he completed this particular sequence. Maybe, later down the road, they've gotten, 3 or 4 modules into course C, and then they sign up for course A. So now we're flipping them back to course A. I'm getting lost in my own analogy here. And they finish course A, and then we got to come back. We want to trigger not the congratulations email, but just the follow-up, right? Just the reminders. So it's just having that laser focused, very specific ability to I want to just do this part. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a lot of benefit to doing single goal and decision diamonds, because it gives you that ability to say, well, no, mostly in my experience, gives you the ability to say, don't do anything with these people if you need to. But I think in this case, it would make a whole lot of sense to split this stuff out. And to be honest, if it's me, I would put the congratulations emails in their own sequence, and the rest of them would just be I don't know. I have a tendency to lean away from put them back exactly where they were and more into just start them at the beginning of the thing.
Yeah.
Right. That's my opinion.
Yeah. My vision when restoring somebody to a campaign's follow-up that they had previously been active in was not to pick up on a specific email, but to pick up on the reminders for whatever the next section is as they begin that next section.
Got
So
it.
like that was it was not like as specific as email 3 in section 2. Yeah.
Oh, right. Because each of those has 3, right? Each of the individual 3 or 4. Like,
Yeah.
there's individual emails there for that section. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I just want
Great
to.
pitch.
I'm following 100% exactly what all of you guys are saying, and not lost at all. But
Right.
I just wanted to clarify for anyone watching who maybe maybe had been left behind a little bit, if that had happened, which I'm not saying it has to me at all. So what you're suggesting here is moving the brain of the thing out of Keap, having that be in Google Sheets with Zapier or the plus this decision maker. And that would, a couple of things I think I'm hearing. One is you wouldn't have the hierarchy like hard coded into that. Let's say you're using a Google Sheet. You wouldn't have a column which is hierarchy 1, 2, 3 that you'd have to move them around. That the hierarchy would be innately in what row in the sheet the thing is. And the second thing I think I'm hearing is using that to create like an external snapshot periodically of where the person is in all the things. Yeah. So if they're halfway through a course that's lower in the hierarchy and they start one that's higher, that snapshot is held there, so that when they then finish the higher one, it realizes and goes back in. Is that the idea?
I mean, that is one way of approaching it, and the more like, yes, that is what my initial thought was, where I'm like, oh yeah, I solution I would go test through is exactly what you're describing, because then, you know, if I've got, you know, course A and I've got 6 sections in it or whatever, then there'd be the 6 sections, and then course B has its 6 sections, and then if I ended up wanting to put in a new one, I just put it in the B sections and, you know, insert columns and move columns to the right or whatever. But the more as we chat through it is where I lean to, you know, there's your active status. I'm in learning processes right now, and I am in, you know, A and C. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I would just decision maker it to say, okay, person, you'd only really use decision maker once it's time to put them into the next thing. So if A is done, pull them out of B, C, D, E, F, G. Once A is done, then I would decision maker it, like remove the A status and say decision maker, do they have C? Because it's a hierarchical in the decision maker tool. And I would just say, oh, it's C. So it would apply the tag to say, now start the C campaign, where I would then go, well, they have section 1, they have section 2. Oh, they're on section 3. And I would just use tagging at that point. Like I am recanting my initial suggestion. It was a terrible idea. Don't listen to me. And
well,
now
hold up. I'm literally building up to give you mad prop. That's a brilliant. No. So what, Jake? What you said before about storing the where they're at, like in the moment of the switch, is absolutely brilliant. I think it's genius, and I'm probably going to use it on like all the stuff that I do. But that's just because I like overcomplicating things. I think, however, what you're describing with the decision maker is the same thing, just a little bit more intuitive, probably, right? Yeah, it's gonna end up doing the same thing. Like it's gonna have the same effect.
It will. It'll have the same effect. And the only reason why I now I typically, if I have the choice of I can do that thing in a Zap to a Google Sheet versus a decision maker plus this, I lean towards plus this because it's simpler typically, and their support team answers the phone and Zapier's doesn't. So if something breaks or goes wrong on the Zap side and the Google Sheet side, I don't have anyone to talk to. I can go in the 100%. Plus this support group. I can go in the plus this, I can go bug Bryce. I personally can walk across the office and go in there and say, hey guys, what's wrong?
I may or may not message you in the middle of the night crying. I mean, like, it's... but yes, I mean, I think so if I were now going to build this for a client, I would do it as like each
course has its process of start tracking you're active in this thing, and that they get pulled out for completion or because a higher status course has been started.
Right.
And then below that is a utility that is send. Oh, great. Do they have section 1 done? No. Send section 1 and apply the tag that they got it. Oh, they do. Do they have section 1 but not section 2? They have section 2 but not section 3. And then you just basically use that utility. And then if for whatever reason, I now know that you've received something about section 2, and now you go into a higher status, well, it pulls me out. I go do A, and at the end, we decision maker it and say, oh, well, their other status they had was in C. Start C, and then I go into C, and it says, oh, they have 1, they have 2, pick up at 3.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question: is when you start breaking it down into like the sections within each course, that it gets, you got 8 courses, but you might have, I mean, I know one course has 11 sections in it. I know that because it has 45 individual lessons, because I transcribed all 45 of them in one day, and my eyeballs hurt by the time I was done.
Shout out to Keith.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fun fact: a lot of the auto transcription services, this maybe even Facebook's, when we say keep, it writes Keith. So our team has been giving a lot of credit to Keith for all of Keith's work. Yeah.
Good job, Keith.
I mean,
Great
Keith
work.
is amazing. Keith works 24 hours a day for your business.
That's another one of those like Clate's story on the paycheck or the payroll
Mark.
thing early on.
Mark.
Yeah. Hey, Mark's making all that money. What's going on or whatever? It's like, yeah, for whatever reason, Keith works his butt off. I mean, it is like every call he's on and every recording, Keith is there.
There is a Parks and Recs episode, or Parks and Rec episode, when after the 2 Parks and Rec departments merge, where Tom is taking credit for the scheduling system, and the scheduling system has a name. I forget what it is, but it's like, oh yeah, that guy never shows up, but he's good.
So my clarifying question was then, like, we're sort of separating the brain into 2 parts, if you will. So there's the external, which course are you in, stopping the other things brain. So if you're in a lower hierarchy, you start a higher hierarchy, you just hard stop the stuff underneath, right? Completely. And then you would restart when the one above finishes. So you would know that they were in 2, or you would know they're in B, they finish A, it goes, cool, they were in B, restart B. That's like a blanket decision happening there. And then over in Campaign Builder, you would there be keeping track of which section in that course they were in, and you would be feeding them into that section based on what happens inside the course with a decision diamond and with tags, right? Because then that doesn't change if the hierarchy changes. That's unique to each course.
Correct. And to make it one better, once someone's completed courses and they're no longer active, you now can pitch the next highest status of what's next that they should be doing. Oh, you haven't done B yet. Go back and do B, because now you don't have a completed B tag. You don't have you have a completed A, C, like, well, B's next, and then D. So it will smoothly, this is a 4-hour build, guys. Come on, let's do this.
And so the only trade-off there, I guess, is that if each chapter of a course, so we have a course with chapters and lessons, usually we'll have reminders for a chapter, right? We can track granularly on a per lesson basis, but we don't do that. 45 lessons. So if you're getting reminders for a chapter and that chapter has 5 reminders, the trade-off is you might have already gotten the first 3 when you start something in a higher hierarchy. You come out of that campaign, you finish the thing above it in the hierarchy, you get put back in, you would get those same 3 again because they're in the one sequence.
That would now be where our friend the liquid content comes to play. is at that point. Like, so now, to Greg and Brett's, the feature of the dynamic content that they love, that is now we are at the place of like, okay, we picked up where we left off. We're in section 2, chapter 2, or whatever, or we're in lesson 2, and you've already done chapter this and this and this. Well, we're going to have these emails that are going to tee up, next. Like, you still have these chapters. You still have chapter on this and on this, on this. So let's dive back in. Hey, you still have these 2 chapters. And if I've done none of them and Brett's done 3 of them and there's 5 total, I'm going to have 5 chapters listed and Brett's going to have 2 chapters listed to go. So that's where the liquid content will be, so that you're not creating a unique sequence in the decision diamond rule on however many 52 chapter, whatever you said, of the big one. And not, then there could be ones down the road that are even bigger. So it's like, no, it's we're in this lesson and there's 5 chapters. So we use the liquid content for that. And this lesson has 17 chapters. Great. I can list 17 chapters, and if I wanted to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Greg,
go ahead, Lindy.
I'm sitting here listening and observing this going, are you going too deep? Does it need to be this deep? Or can the reminders be more generic? Because I always look at this from a perspective of an end user wanting to create this, and they're looking at this going, too hard, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
So if we come of it from a simplistic view, I'm looking at Keap Academy and I'm gone to the courses. I'm on the product training tab, which has 6 courses in it. I know Advanced Automations has 3 modules, 3 mini courses within that. So out of those, you've got this one tab, you focus on these courses, which these courses have this within it. But just if I've enrolled in Advanced Automation, that's got my, what did you call it, Greg? Your eloquent tag, entry filter. They've got the tag saying, hey, I'm active in Advanced Automation.
Yeah.
And then it just sends a reminder saying that, and I've said this to Greg with his affiliate programs back in the day when we had those, just send me a thing every now and then, a generic email that says, here's this information. So a generic email that says, hey, you're enrolled in Advanced Automation, you haven't completed it, go back here. So you're just giving that little nudge reminder saying, just come back to the portal. They come back, they'll jump into whatever they want to jump into, but that's where I do see dynamic content being able to say, and you've got your tags inside Advanced Automation, you're in 1, 2, or 3.
Gosh.
It will then say, hey, you're in Advanced Automation in this section, let's go back.
Lindy, first of all, I'm so glad that you said that and challenged that, because I should have led this whole session off with, don't do this.
I literally was messaging you guys privately, like, if a client said, I want this, I would say no.
Yeah, I think that's totally valid. What we're describing, this is an academic exercise to solve a intentionally hard thing that I think will let us create a really specific customer journey. Like, that's what we're setting out to do. But what you're walking into, if you're watching this conversation, is version 9. It's not where it starts.
And 100%, like, this is, which is why I started my initial line of questioning on how complex are we making these emails?
Yeah.
Because the simple answer, the version 1, which outperforms version none every day of the week, would be, nah, you're just gonna, like,
you're
gonna keep it simple
in a while.
You're gonna use the same damn emails for everything, and you're gonna change one little thing about it. That's it. You're done. You have not earned the right to go beyond that until you do that. So it definitely starts there. And I know I get my coaches in trouble if I do consults because I'm like, yeah, we could do
Tell them
that.
what's possible. Yeah. and then
Yeah,
the
we could
coaches have
do
to
that. And I go
Yeah,
hand it off
yeah,
to certain coaches and they're like,
Like, Jerry, don't do that again.
what the heck did you just sell them on? I'm like, no, it's all good. You just have to do this to this to this. They're like, I don't,
Yeah,
what?
it's like just do that.
But I think where it gets to is majority of the people who may be watching this, if they are newer to courses or they're newer to that, they're launching courses, they're not going to be at a complexity of this level. And if they are, they're trying too hard. I would imagine that they're probably stretching themselves pretty thin. If a multi-million-dollar company that has an academy team to focus on this with multiple people making very big money, that's you, Greg. If
Rolling in it.
They're at a point, like, as much as Keap tries to pretend that they're still entrepreneurs, they're not. They are a large organization with lots of employees.
for sure.
And so the problem we're solving is for a larger organization versus, if you're doing this for your own coursework or whatever it may be.
And like, let's call it what it is. We have a version live serving customers. Like, if you enroll in these courses, you'll get follow-up. So the problem we've created is, but if you enroll in all of them, you're going to get all the follow-up. And so like like Jake said, version 1 outperforms version none every day of the week. Like, we're not starting this conversation with like this objective. It's progressed to this point, and we have a team of people, like you said, devoted to solving it. So if you don't live in that world, don't worry about it. Get the first version live and put out the fires that are of the most priority for you. Jade, go ahead.
Ooh, guys, you're gonna like this one. As an expert in hacking the brains of easily distracted ADD people, namely myself.
Yes.
What's spicy about this problem, is that whatever they most recently enrolled in, even though it's not the most important, which we'll talk about that later, that's the one that's top of their mind. Yeah. So if you want to capture their attention and encourage them to remind them to do things, then do that. But you can use Liquid to say, if you can have like a status tag saying they're not completing the really important one, saying that they're, in progress, but not completing, then have a section that's like, hey, really want you to finish this. Here's a link to it, but this really won't make a lot of sense unless you've completed this one. So we recommend that you do that instead.
Yeah.
But so you're catering to what they care about in the moment, which is going to change every 2 seconds, let's be honest. But you're making it clear as you nudge them, like, hey, I know you didn't finish course B, but B will be easier if when you finish A first. And that will only be visible if they're in progress of A.
Love it. Jade has been messaging, it turns out, all of us privately throughout this Zoom call. But
I'm very chatty. Chatty.
She messaged me earlier and was like, should I be the person who says, who the F do you think you are to tell them what order to take the courses in? And I was like, Jade, you need to say that out loud, because that's important here. Like, and Josh and I, we had that as part of our conversation. Like, it's sort of a philosophical approach. Like, if the customer starts a new course, that is the one that they are interested in. Send them those reminders. And that campaign is much easier to build, because every time they start a new course, that's the top priority. The challenge with that approach is, as any consultant or coach or educator will tell you, sometimes your clients don't know what is best for them. And they may want Advanced Automations Chapter 3, but what they really need is Keap Basics 101, so that they can build up to that, right? And so like it's delicate, and that I don't think there is an answer to it. Like, I don't think there's a right or wrong approach. I think like for every business, like and each scenario, you have to make a judgment call. Like, am I going to assert my priorities onto them and the way that I think that these courses will best build? Or are we going to just let them choose their own adventure and support the route that they, bushwhack for themselves?
And like,
and what's really fascinating about that as well,
I'll inevitably hit a wall where I'm like, I don't understand this. And then I'll go back, but I need to feel the pain for myself that I made a mistake by taking course B before course A.
well, and the other thing that we're seeing, which is quite interesting and like surprised me when I started getting into the data of it, is you will get people who will sign up for our course and will do some of the course and then will drift off and then they'll sign up for something else a few days later. And yeah, in that case, that's the thing that's most interesting to them. But what we're seeing quite a lot of is people will get to the platform, will sign up for 3 or 4 courses in quick succession, and then will come back and start doing the second one that they signed up for, or the fourth one, or the first one. Sort of like people are creating a watch later list for themselves by signing up. And that was the simple solution, is to just give them the thing they most recently started. I 100% agree with that one. And the reason we started reconsidering that was that thing that we saw of they're not necessarily signing up in the order that they watch things.
I think there's something really. The other thing that we haven't said is that we're trying to make something do something it wasn't designed for, which is pretty much what we spend 90% of our time doing in Infusionsoft, and we get really good at it. But also there are so this. I'm not saying, when I say there are tools that do this, I'm not saying just get the tool that does it. What I am saying is that because this is not designed, Infusionsoft is not designed to be a course delivery platform. It's designed as a marketing delivery platform. There's always going to be a wall we're going to bump up against. And so because of that, the extent to which your choice basically is, do I present the version that my system allows me to present? Or, and this is where we get into this is the kind of the juxtaposition of keep it simple versus do it the right way, whatever that is. At some point, you're going to have to start branching out into other areas to get the brain that's supposed to be the thing that's driving everything to actually function the way that it's supposed to. That's when you bring in plus this, because plus this is thinking, okay, how do we get this thing to kind of like lean in this area as well? So now it's this what it's designed to be, but also it can kind of do these other things. And that's where I think it is. The conversation about going into, well, let's put aside what's easiest. Let's put aside what's simplest. Because for anyone listening, I'm gonna take the other approach. Simple is good, yes, but correct is better, right? Simple is good, yes, but the right way to do it is the better way to do it. Right?
You kind of spanked me a little bit there, but I'm okay with that.
Hold on. I don't think anybody's advocating for simple over correct.
I am.
That's what I was saying.
I'm lazy.
It's simple over nothing and correct over simple.
Exactly. Right.
Whatever you think,
I think, this is somewhat in defense of my natural tendency, which is let me do this the fancy way. But also, I think the question should not be, how could we do this? I think the question should be, what do our customers want? Right. And I'm not as good at knowing those things or being able to divine from what somebody says. My suggestion, I think, before we go the route of, well, if it's me, I would have called 50 people and talked to them on the phone and said, hey, how has your experience been? You got a bunch of emails? How do you feel about that? Because you know what might happen? People might really like getting a bunch of emails, right? And then this whole thing becomes moot. Now, moot is also my favorite place to play. So
because of
I'm super. Yeah, yes, I'm super excited that and I love the conversation and going into those things. But I think that's part of it too, right? So what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What is it that we're trying to have happen here? and then whatever it's going to take to go and do that, right? So I think what we've come up with so far, there's just a bunch of just absolutely brilliant ideas. I think everything
and I want to add in some of the audience ideas too. These are really good, guys. If you're not paying attention to the chat, one, Moishi was like, before they take any courses, have them take a quiz first to see where they're at and give a course path recommendation. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Heather
Absolutely
was
brilliant.
like, Heather's is the simplest and the best. Sorry, girl. I mean, I'm partial because I love her, but she was like, put in bold text at the top of course B. Hey, idiot, don't take this unless you know everything that's in course A. I don't know. Do their thing. Love it.
That was a bit like my suggestion of
Yeah,
at the beginning
exactly.
of the course, put an intro module in that says, here's the best way to digest Keap Academy. If you're this, go here, complete them through. And 100%, this is end user experience. This is not about what you're thinking is needed. It's like, well, what do they want? If people want to click to get reminders, to get a reminder from you in 3 weeks' time to say, hey, come back and do this, then you go back and you go, oh, that's right, I enrolled in this. What's my priority? So yeah, that's the complexity. Is it really needed? Is the reminders just to come back to digest and consume good enough for it?
Yeah, because the other piece too, with the idea of generic, even so, to kind of take from a bunch of different things that have been said, you have much more control over a page than you do over an email. So what if the email was the same thing and you just rotated subject lines and it takes you to a place?
Yeah.
And the place is controlled, right? And it shows you, this is the thing to do next, and this is what you've done before. And they can say, dismiss this because I know that I did that already. And it slides away. You just have much more control over something like that.
Yeah, this comes back to why you should, like, we talked about potential of what tool is the tool that makes the most sense. And as you get into an academy multi-course access sort of a thing, this is why I think Thinkific, Kajabi, some of those that are used by a smaller business to get courses up and live fast and efficiently and cleanly, and that it can manage and people can make great money off of just doing that. And so it has its place, but when you want to create the right experience, and to me, it feels like it's much more. If you think of, like, if you've never been inside of like the digital marketer HQ and you've got inside of their HQ, I've got the certifications I can take. Well, I can go start social media marketing. I can go start content marketing. I can go start, and I can see all of them available in one place. And I can see that I'm 37% done on that one and 10% on this one. And I have certificates on this and this and this and this. And so the experience at that point is now you can always, as people come in, be prompting them to, like, hey, the learning path we recommend is this, but it's a pick your own adventure. Go watch whatever you want to watch, because even in digital marketers, you should start with, there's very specific ones you should watch first that will define key phrases they use throughout multiple things and diagrams and such, that then you would go look at, as you go into some of the other ones, they start talking about some of those maps and those things. You're like, oh yeah, that's from the other thing. If you don't, you're like, I have no idea what this avatar map thing is that they're showing me.
Yeah.
Plus the real estate on a page like that is just so much more flexible. You can,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you can just make it look however you want.
Yeah.
And then use the messages to get people back to it.
Like, hey, snapshot every week. You're taking Keap Academy courses, and like bold the priority ones and like don't bold the not priority ones, and be like, this is where you're at. You want to work on that? So
I think, we've hit on lots of ways that you could approach this too, that you could even begin to start to look at, whether it be via Google Sheets. And I know there's lots of people in the Monkey Pod world, in the Keap world, who are probably way better at Google Sheets than I am with Zaps and things, and can even help solve some of those. But there are ways of doing it through that. Plus this, decision makers. Greg, you messaged me, like the Cycler, the Smart Links, all that sort of stuff that can help play into this. And then, go call Kyle Levitt and talk to him about the Customer Hub world, or go look at Memberium with a LearnDash module of being able to tag things, or whatever it may be. Each company will have their own unique thing, but I think the biggest component, and I saw it in the messages on the online thing, and I think we've hit on a lot as we've kind of get into the wrap up of this, is I think it's what is the experience we want them to have, and just because we can't email them, do we have to? And if we email them, does it have to be specific to the thing? Can I text them? I'd much rather you text me. I don't want to get an email from you. I get too many damn emails. If I opt in for texting, text me a reminder. I'm probably way more likely to do it. But there's, I think there's
and those and the beauty too of text is it doesn't have to be dynamic with like, this is where you are and click here to go to this place. It's just, hey, you haven't been in, this is a reminder to go back. And then it's just check your email or check you haven't logged in 3 days, whatever it is.
We are gonna we need to wrap this up, and I don't have an elegant way.
You guys and your wrapping up, I swear, you guys always want to cut these conversations like in half.
Listen.
Well, I mean, like, I'm never tired.
Here, you guys go. Jade and I will stick around for the 2 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like,
we can pick it up tomorrow for all I care. But 2 things. In order for anybody to watch the replay of this, we need to keep it a reasonable length. And somebody's got to feed Sarah dinner. It's 8:45, and she's in there probably with a bag of like chip crumbs and a stray carrot she found.
There's a boy sitting on the couch here who has to finish his homework and get himself to bed.
Do your homework, sweetie.
Yeah.
You got this.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give everybody 60 to 90 seconds for closing thoughts. It can be about this conversation, any points that you left unmade or thoughts that have occurred to you since, or it can be totally unrelated to tonight's topic. You have the platform for 75 seconds. Let's go.
All of us at once for 75 seconds? Is that how that's...
Yeah, we have a shared 75 seconds. Brett, I think you just volunteered to go first.
I'll go first. 2 things that I just wanted to say. It's so good to see all of you. 3 things. So good to see all of you. Specifically, and no offense to everybody else, specifically you, Lindy. I'm super excited to see you again. The other thing I wanted to say was just how I love being in conversations like this, because it seems like I was somewhat the impetus, the challenge that I threw down, and I just got to sit here and listen to other people spew brilliance. So thanks, Jake, for ideas, and Lindy as well. And I think at the end of the day, again, it's just if it's me, I would just call people and just ask them what they want, and then just do that.
I think there's some wisdom in that simplicity, right? You can spend your whole life guessing what people want, but you can also ask, and you might be surprised what they tell you. Lindy, 75 seconds, you're on the clock.
All right. So it's been awesome. I love it too. Brilliant brains. But I agree with if you want to go complex and deep with this because of, being a higher level further on, then that separate brains, whatever, spreadsheet thingy, that's beyond my brain. Go there with it. But in Keap Academy, have that intro thingy of watch this first. Greg, I think you had that in all your courses. Start here. All courses have a start here. Here's what we recommend. But start with product training. That's where a lot of people come in and start. That has the least amount of courses in it. So just refine that one first. Then refine it down and go, let's just start with advanced automation and do the follow-up there. Test it, see what works. Post in the Keap user group. Email the Keap Academy enrollees and say, hey, what do you want?
Yep.
Because end user choice, you can't always control it. It's going to go everywhere. But yeah, just because it can be high level doesn't mean it has to be.
Yeah, I think there's something to that with like, do you design the solution for behaviors that might, happen all over the place? Or do you proactively try and help people make the right choices so that the complex solution is less necessary overall? I think there's brilliance in that. Jake.
You can always recommend a flow. I'm going overtime now. You can always recommend a flow. How are they going to do what they want to do?
Totally.
Yeah.
So let them.
Yeah.
So mine is going to be like, there's going to be a lot of the mix of Jakeisms and six divisionisms and things like that in there. But, to me, it's strategy will always precede implementation. And so the mapping, planning, designing an experience you want should come first. Identify, this is what I think you give people a call, like Brett said, you identify, and it's like, no, we're making a decision that this is the experience we want them to have. And let's now design it and make it do that. And then the implementation of then how we want to do it, the emails we would build, or dynamic content, or decision maker tool, or getting out of Thinkific, hopefully, like whatever the thing may be, like that is a decision that comes after the strategic, planning, mapping, and all of that. We want this to happen. Well, what's the tool that provides the best, avenue to do that? And it may or may not be the tool you use. It may be a different tool. It may be the tool you use, which is great. The other thing is the idea of, Brett may have heard this from his brother before, because he Brad likes to quote Eric Thomas, the whatever hip hop preacher, whatever. But it's his quote that is, the important thing, and I've got it on my iPad so that way I don't actually misquote it, but the important thing is this: to be able at any moment to sacrifice who you are for who you can become. And so being prepared to, as Keap Academy, say, we're throwing the script out. What do we want this to be? And being willing to build it from the ground up. Plus this throughout their code and built it again, and they're about to do it again for a third time and come out with a brand new version of the coding and allow them to do more faster, build, within their own system. Like that, it's just one of those things that every once in a while you start, you throw away the polos you'd wear to work and you start wearing Star Wars shirts every day to work. Like, who's the new person you want to become? What's the new system process? But I think it starts with very clear, okay, forget the tool, forget that email type, what we're sending, how we're sending. What do we want them to actually experience? What are ones we've really liked that are out there? Now let's go design the thing we want for that, and then figure out, is what we're using right, or upgrade, or whatever it may be.
It hurts. JMP.
I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming and playing the game with us and having the conversation. And I'm going to echo something that we talked about a little bit into the call, just for everyone watching, is that we have made this needlessly complicated for the purposes of this comment. Like, we allowed ourselves to go down the really complicated rabbit hole. But a lot of the time, it's not always the best solution. And if you are facing something like this, which is really complicated, don't be afraid to, but maybe err towards the thing that feels like the simpler solution. Like in our case, give them the reminders for the thing they've signed up for most recently. Like, feels simpler, also philosophically, arguably the better solution. So just because it's more complicated doesn't mean it's better.
Just because you can doesn't. What's the Jurassic Park quote? Your scientists were so fixated on whether or not they could, they never stopped to consider whether they should.
Thank you for the 90s reference. I needed that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have it pulled up on an iPad to read off, but I should have. I'm sure I butchered it, but someone will help us. Jade, go ahead.
Guys, I'm going to be on brand here. So everyone take a deep breath, because I'm going to whiffle, which is short for what I feel like expressing. Okay. This is the feelings party. Do it. Greg, you're doing great.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing everybody together. It is indeed your superpower. And I think tonight you pretty much nailed it. I mean, like, this is like secret sauce. Jake, you're doing great too. You're smart. You're opinionated. And I think if you were a D, you wouldn't have to give your time to as many people as you do, but you are a giver and a lover. And I want to make sure you get credit for that too. Thank you for sharing with us. Lindy, you are like you're doing great, by the way. You're the epitome of like why like humans and empathy need to be injected into automation. Like, I don't think in ones and zeros, but like I love automation because I think it's like a creative process, and there's like a human side to it too, and you embody that. And I love the way your brain works, because you like remind us all that there's human beings on the other side of these emails, on the other side of the texts, right? So thank you for that. Josh, your smiles. Oh, by the way, you're doing great. Your smiles, your nods, your puffs, your enjoyment. It means you're a hungry learner and you're open to anything. And we need more of that in the world. People are very like I want, and I know what I'm going to do. But like, you're like, please educate me. Please teach me. What do you think? What do you think? And that is freaking beautiful. So don't stop being you. Just stay special. I love that. P.S. What are you smoking? I want to know.
I'm smoking the Judge Toro Fino by My Father Cigars. There we go.
It's on my next list. Brett.
Hang on. Before you go, Jade, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How am I doing?
On a scale from 0 to great, you're an 11. You're like, Brett, if you weren't the evil scientist that you were, and by evil, I mean amazing and brilliant and smart and generous, we wouldn't be here. Your inquisitiveness opens doors for us to use our brains. I mean, did you see everyone nerding out in the chat? We love this. Thank you. Thank you for being an evil / amazing / not at all evil scientist. You're beautiful. Thank you for your brain.
I'll echo the thank you and the gratitude. I just feel really flippin' lucky. I love this stuff, and I'm like just appreciative of you all for jumping on with no context. I was like, hey, I want to do this thing, and you're like, all right, let's see what Craig's got planned, and here we are. So thanks for your willingness, for your trust, and for your just like selflessness in sharing the hard-earned expertise. Yeah, I was gonna like, my plan was to like be like, hey, this was new, and like I don't know how it went, but I kind of do know how it went, and I don't need to ask should we do it again, because I want to do it again. So here's what I will ask. If you would like to be part of a panel like this, brainstorming on a problem, let us know.
Yeah, call me, not Craig, call me.
Hit Jade up. Or if you have a scenario that you would love a group of people to strategize over, to poke holes in, to ask questions about, again, hit Jade up. It works out nicely because Jade is right next to me on my screen, but I don't think that's the case. Let's see if we can we move? If I move you guys around, does it adjust on Facebook as well? Is that something? No. Okay. Anyway, that's it. That's all she wrote. Thanks to our panelists tonight, and special shout out to Jade, who gave us all love. But as everybody knows, she is also doing great. Peace.